Hi, welcome to Living Recovery. My name's Travis Whitaker, and thank you to our sponsor, Maple Mountain Recovery. My first guest here today is Jordan Lee, and thank you so much for joining. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jordan and I go way back. I think we've known each other probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. And you've got an amazing story that he's going to share with us today. So let's talk a little bit about your story. Let's talk about when it all kind of began, when addiction kind of came into your life.
I think that addiction came into my life. Obviously, my perception of when it came into my life is different today. But troublesome came in. I was talking to my wife yesterday and I said it out loud. I went to 4 different elementary schools. I went to 3 different fifth grades. So I think using anger and violence was kind of my first tool, unhealthy tool.
Yeah.
And then substance abuse came, by 8th grade, substance abuse was a heavy part of my life.
Wow, 8th grade. How old are we when we were in 8th grade?
It was 10, 11, 12.
12?
12 years old.
Wow. So I know that we talk a lot. So, I mean, we're both in the industry of helping people get what we have, substance abuse, mental health industry. And Jordan's got a huge passion like I do myself. And we've had the opportunity to go talk at schools. And I think the first thing I tell them is when the parents are there to make sure you're locking up their prescriptions, because I think a lot of times that's when you're 10, 11 years old, you might be getting into parents' prescriptions. What started you at 12?
Older siblings, my older sister's boyfriends were bad examples. And a single family home. So my mom, and she was busy working all the time. So I was basically raised, I was the youngest of 5 kids, youngest of 6, but 5 in the home. And out of that, I didn't have great examples.
Yeah.
And if they were smoking and that was cool and they were the adult men in my life that I looked up to, then that was something that I aspired or wanted to do.
So were they like in high school then?
Junior high. I mean, since I was in 5th grade, my older sisters, they're 2, 4, 6, and 8 years older than me. So it ranged from junior high all the way to graduating high school. And those are the people that I looked up to.
God, that's young. That's young age. Mine didn't start until I was 20. I mean, my full-blown addiction, I was 25. So at 12, I mean, we talk about the frontal cortex isn't fully developed till you're 25, right? So that's when I started. So if you started at 12, I mean, what was your life like? I mean, tell me kind of a day-to-day at 12 years old. What were you going through?
The tough thing is that by the time, I know that when I went and stole a pack of cigarettes, and I went to smoke one at the church. Everyone goes to smoke a cigarette at the church, right? Especially around here. So we smoked a cigarette, and after we went out, I think we pretended to smoke. And I said, let's go back. And we smoked through the whole pack. And then we went and stole another pack. And so from the very beginning for me, it felt good to be bad, and I felt accepted and a little bit different. And so what it was like for me was absolute pain and misery from the very start, because then I went to smoking weed after that. And then that escalated into alcohol and other things at such a rapid rate where by 8th grade, I was kicked out of a full year of school for selling weed at school.
8th grade.
Yeah, I did not go to 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th grade of school.
And you're saying that when you got to the weed, it was like that acceptance, just being accepted. So what did you struggle with? Why were you thinking the acceptance? Was it because the older kids, when you were 10, you felt that, and then you just wanted to continue to feel that acceptance on in your life, or what?
I think that they protected me. So my older sister's boyfriend specifically, when they're like, hey, he's cool, he's old enough to come in and let's smoke some weed with him.
Yeah.
And so when they did that, it was kind of like they brought me into a circle, almost like a family should, and put their arms around you and say, we love you. And it was false. It's a false relationship, but that's how it felt. I think looking back, I felt like they had accepted me and brought me into this family, and that they were going to protect me as all young kids should be protected.
So before we get into other stuff, how long? So from 10 years old, how long was your total addiction? 10 to what?
I got sober at 17 the first time. So the first time after not going to school, getting heavily involved in methamphetamine and cocaine, and being locked up repeatedly in multiple treatment centers and leaving home at a young age. At 17, I got sober. I went to a 12-step program, and that changed my life, and I stayed sober for the next couple of years.
So who introduced you at 17 to cocaine and methamphetamines?
I think that was just the circle that I ran with. So in 8th grade, when they kick you out of school, the tough thing is when you're kicked out of school and your mom's at work all day, they leave a kid home by
Yeah.
himself.
Yep.
And so the only people that are not around are either adults or they're people that are kicked out of school. And so one thing leads to another. You hang around that type of crowd,
Yeah.
you're going to hang around eventually worse and worse people.
And it's like, just try this. It'll make you feel good. It'll make
Yeah.
all your pain go away, right?
The other hard thing is my oldest brother had
Yeah.
an addiction. He was cooking meth. This was the 90s, 1990s. That makes me sound so old. But that was part of the issue too, is that I knew my oldest brother, who was 8 years older than me, had left home, and I looked up to him. But he was cooking meth and he was doing bad things. And so for me, it was easy to access it. And it was also easy for me to live that lifestyle because mom was trying to raise 5 kids.
Yeah. And you said he was cooking it.
He was.
So yeah. So it's easy access.
Extremely easy access.
Right there.
Uh-huh.
Wow. So 17, all this is kind of going on. And you talked about you went to a 12-step and you had some sobriety, right?
I did.
So from 17 until when?
17 till about 23.
About 23. Okay. So tell me about how your life was during that sobriety time from 17 to 23. What were you doing at that time?
It was amazing. So when I went to this last treatment center. They forced me to work the 12 steps. My mom came and brought me a book. She brought me 2 books, and she said, read these 2 books and they'll change your life. Not have to say what they are, but I read the 2 books, and what happened after that, what followed after that was like magical. I got to wrestle.
Awesome.
I got to go back my senior year of high school. I dated the head cheerleader. I wrestled varsity at Brighton High School. I was a 4.0 student on the honor roll. My brother left on a mission. He gave me a '67 Mustang, so I felt super cool.
What?
Yeah.
What?
And I thought, holy crap, they were right. And the whole deal is grandma was right. Mom was right.
Yeah.
If you do the right thing and if you put one foot in front of the other, good things happen.
Yeah.
And the thing that I didn't do well is that after you leave a treatment center or after you leave these things, you think you've got it. The
Right.
whole problem is this disease is insidious. It's patient. It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. And it told me, you don't need to go to meetings. You don't need to do these things. You just need a good job and a good girlfriend and to do good things. And I was wrong. I found out a very hard way. Later on, I had surgery, and the surgery is what led from one thing to the other.
Right. So 23, you have surgery?
I did.
And let me guess, so I never had surgery until I actually got sober. And then I had nerve reconstructive surgery in my elbow. I got MRSA. And then I started having all these other things, right? Because my body's just, from not only sports, but not taking care of it for 12 years is not in a good place. And I remember saying to every doctor, I'm an addict. I break out in handcuffs. My life doesn't go well if I take these pills, right? Even though I would say that, they would give my wife a prescription saying just in case he needs it.
Absolutely.
Just in case he needs it.
Case.
So let me guess, that's what happened. They have surgery and they give you narcotics.
They gave me narcotics, yes. I took them. And the thing is when you're not involved in recovery, when you don't have a recovery lifestyle, you don't think you have a problem with it.
Right.
You're thinking, I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to need some painkillers. So that's the nuance there. The problem is that somebody like me that has an addictive personality, once I took those pills, once I put a substance in my body, I react differently than normal people. Yeah. And I didn't know how to put them down.
And then what generally will happen is it's not 1 every 4 hours. It's like 4 every 30 minutes. That's what happens, right?
Yeah.
We don't follow the directions, and then we're constantly looking for that high again. And it's awful. And, I went to my doctor because he's the first one that ever prescribed me medications. I went after because I feel like I abused him. I lied every time I needed more scripts, right? And he would just do this because I had problems with my back. And I went to him after and said, I just got out of treatment. And I want you to know, and I need you to write on my file, which was like this big, no narcotics ever. Because I said, I was abusing the system to get what I needed because I was sick. I wasn't in a right place. And I said, and this is 2009. And I'm like, why do you prescribe this? He's like, we're barely just getting educated on the crisis of narcotics and Oxycontin and all these things because we go to school to learn how to treat a symptom. You come to me with a symptom, I'm trained to treat that symptom. And usually by treating that symptom, it's writing a script, right? So I hope these days in 2020, doctors are getting a little more educated and we're starting to kind of bring that, that bar up. I know my doctor now will not prescribe any Xanax, no opioids to anybody because I worry about that with my kids, right? Being passed
Absolutely.
down. So 23, you get prescribed this. What surgery did you have?
I had MCL, ACL, and my meniscus in my right knee.
Okay. So how long did you take pills and get the pills before it went to something different?
The pills, it's kind of wild because what I've learned in recovery is that over any considerable time, a disease gets worse, never better.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it felt like those 5.5 years or whatever it was, the second I ate those pills, that it was back to where it was. It was back like I was in quicksand and Satan and evil had stretched all around me. I was lonely. I was lonely in a crowd of people almost instantly. And when the script ran out, and the scary thing is I followed it as prescribed.
Oh boy.
And so when it ran out, all I thought was I need more pills.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. So I went and got a refill, ate them. And then when I was sick, I mean, cold sweats, hot, I couldn't get out of bed. My friend came over and he said, "Hey, dummy, you're detoxing."
Yeah.
And I said, "How could I detox? I've never even done opiates. Opiates weren't my thing. I was doing meth, cocaine, weed, acid, everything else but opiates. I didn't even like them."
And I'm prescribed by a doctor.
And
Why am I getting
sick? The doctor prescribed them to me.
Yeah.
And so the solution to that problem is where it all went south. I had just been married. I had just got home from a service mission, and I took all my money and I drove to Mexico and I bought $10,000 worth of OxyContin because my solution wasn't get help, tell somebody what's going on. My solution was get more pills.
Right.
Feed the beast.
Feed the beast.
Feed the beast.
Did you keep all those for yourself?
No, it was a good business plan at the time. The business plan was to sell most of them.
Right.
And they'll only eat a little bit. And you know how that works.
And then to make enough money to keep probably doing this. If it was successful the first time, right?
It was very successful. Actually, the crazy thing is that was $30,000 in 3 days. And I got in the car and drove straight down again and bought double the amount of pills and drove straight back. So, and I remember the first trip down on the way back, I sniffed 8 OxyContin 80s on the drive home. The first time I'd really ever done an 80. So on a 12-hour drive to San Diego, I did 12 80s.
Wow.
Because I was used to using like I used to.
Right.
So that would kill most people, I think, after talking and looking around. I think, that's pretty dangerous.
You know, and we're going to take a quick break and let's come back and talk more about that. So we're going to take a quick break. Thank you so much, Jordan Lee, and our sponsor, Maple Mountain Recovery and Living Recovery Interventions.
I am a business owner.
I am a mother, a doctor.
I am a student athlete.
A lawyer.
I'm a police officer.
I'm your neighbor.
I needed meth.
Opioids.
I needed coke.
I needed alcohol.
I needed opioids.
I needed heroin.
I needed help. Maple Mountain Recovery is here to help you with your healing and recovery. Call 801-499-9316 or visit us online at maplemountainrecovery.com.
All right, thank you so much. Welcome back to Living Recovery Interventions with my special guest, Jordan Lee. Thank you again, Jordan. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So we went to break you were talking about 80 milligram OxyContin. So I remember going in to the ER when I was detoxing, since we're talking about just how awful that is, and going to the doctors and they're asking me what you coming off of, and I'm telling them, and I've got back pain. And they're like, "How much you been taking?" I said 300 or 400 milligrams of OxyContin. And they looked at me like that just wasn't possible. And I'm like, "Well, you're not a drug addict for 12 years. You don't understand the tolerance that you build." And they're like, "That's enough to kill a cow." So tell me about your first experience when you're taking 80s.
Well, my nose itched.
Yeah.
A little,
I mean,
a little bit.
It does, yeah.
And it felt good.
Yeah.
I mean, it really did. The thing is that it makes you feel on top of the world for a little bit. You know, that's the illusion of all substances, is that it makes you feel like Superman for a little bit, for a moment.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And the other insidious thing about the disease is that I thought that nobody knew, and that was one of my biggest addictions, was getting one over on everybody.
Right.
Was being the chameleon. I wanted to be who you wanted to be, and I had just been married. The scary thing about that whole situation is that I was selling OxyContin for all those months, and my wife, my in-laws, and my family had no idea. I didn't have a job. I was flying to San Diego twice a week,
Now you're flying.
I'm flying there twice
Like,
a week.
I'm not driving no more.
And they think I work downtown, and that's all a
Wow.
lie. It's all a facade. And that all came crashing down in a blaze of glory in
Yeah.
a short, like 6 months later.
Yeah. You had mentioned you've been shot at. I mean, some crazy things have happened during your addiction. And that's the part right there when we talk about, I felt good for a minute. But you never know it's going to lead to, I'm robbing people, I'm lying, I'm that chameleon. When we're in our addiction, we're so worried about our next fix because we want to not get dope sick. And we think that our family and friends don't know, but it doesn't continue to get better. Like, you start getting arrested, you're wrecking cars, different types of things. What got you to the point that you had enough? Like, what was your bottom?
My bottom, I'd have to say, is at the end of that, I went down, I took a trip solo by myself to Mexico, and they had run out of what I wanted, and so I was shopping around, and I went to a bar that I usually went to, and they would give me oxys and Coronas there.
Yeah.
And I told them I needed $20,000 worth of stuff, and so pretty much they grabbed me, they took me in an alley, and I was afraid they were going to take my life because I had the money on me.
Wow.
And I fought my way out. I punched and kicked and screamed, and I ran all the way to the border, and I came home, and I remember calling my wife at the time and said, I'm coming home. She didn't know I was looking at the battleships in San Diego.
She thinks you're downtown at a job.
Uh-huh.
Oh, my gosh.
And I caught a flight, and I came home, and that's when I began to attempt to get sober.
Right.
And what that entailed over the next, I would say, year was going to methadone clinics. And I got on methadone to where I was up to 300 milligrams a day. There was a short period, there was a 1 week stretch where I think my higher power was trying to stop me or was helping to put me to rest. And I fell asleep at the wheel smoking crack cocaine and hit a barrier doing 65 miles an hour. And 2 days later, somebody shot at me on the freeway, emptied a full clip about 6 feet from my face. And that's just one of, I would say, a half dozen times that a gun's been put to my head or that I've been shot at. And it's usually all just for a couple of bucks. You look at it and you think, this is just for hundreds of dollars that I'm into this house, I'm robbing these people, I'm robbing this home, I'm stealing this stuff, I'm robbing from my family. And so at that point, when all this accumulates and comes together and you're 120 pounds,
Yeah.
and what happened to me is my eyes swole shut, all the toenails, because at this point I'm using intravenously, so I'm shooting up methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin, and I'm smoking crack. So my toenails all pop off. I lose the house, the wife leaves me, the divorce happens.
You're not sleeping.
Boom! No, I'm not sleeping.
You're not sleeping.
I'm living out of a car, and
Yeah.
no one will let me in the house. No one will let me around anymore. And when everybody says no, when everybody finally holds a boundary,
Yeah.
even if it's 20 years too late, when finally everyone holds that boundary, you have no choice but to reach out for some
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
And to make a change.
It's difficult when you hear people just, I got this. I know what I need to do. I got this.
That's scary.
It's like, how's that working for you?
Mhm.
I get the living in a car. I did that when I was sober, not until then, because my wife was an enabler. And it was funny because she's like, you can't be an addict if it's prescribed by a doctor. Like, I don't understand that, right? And then I got sober, and it takes time to heal and start creating those new patterns of the healthy lifestyle. And I got to experience living in a car for like a couple months being sober. And I'll tell you what, it's simple things like that just make you appreciate. So, and right now when we're talking about appreciation, if I'm not mistaken, so you and your wife, right? So how long have you been sober now?
I've been sober 12 years and a month, 12 years and 3 weeks. So.
And how long have you been married?
Gosh, I'm going to get in trouble here. Married 10 years.
Nice. And 3 beautiful kids. I mean, would you ever think that you would be where you're at now?
Absolutely not. I lived my teenage life. I lived from 10 to the 20, like I wasn't going to make it to 20 years old. I never planned or intended with my lifestyle to live into my 20s. And it's an absolute miracle to make it past that. And then
You are a miracle.
We're a miracle. And to have the
Yeah.
life that we get to have today is nothing short of a miracle. It's a blessing.
It's funny you say that because I didn't think I would make it to 30. And now I'm going to be, how old am I going to be? I'll be 48 in a month or so, you know, and I'm actually having the best time of my life now. You know, I get to be there for my kids. And we talked a little bit earlier that how we, you know, are so close. And I got sober in my addiction when I was married with kids, and we kind of bring that different, you know, part of recovery to each other that works, because it's different for everybody. You know, what works for you might not work for me. What works for me might not work for you. And I got to help repair those relationships with my kids, just as you did with your mom and family and everybody, you know, and to be there and suit up and show up for your family now, and you get to help people in recovery. I mean, there's nothing better in the world than to pay it forward. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of do this show, is talk about that we're not bad people. You know, we're just stuck in a environment that we don't know how to get out of, you know, and it's to try and explain to somebody what it's like. It's like Groundhog's Day when you're in addiction. It's waking up and it's the same thing every day. Every day. So tell me, just how's your life now? I mean, tell me about the blessings you have.
3 kids is a major blessing. Cooper, Roxy, and Chloe. They every single day it makes me want to be a better person.
Yeah.
Every day I thank God every single day that I don't have to pick up drugs and or alcohol, and that I get to live a better life. And the cool thing is now we're uniquely qualified to tell somebody else that's down in the dumps.
Yeah.
There's a way out.
Yeah.
We know how to get there. And that's magical. One of the most magical things that I was given was the ability to share my message with somebody else. And I realized that and kind of honed my message in about 18 months being sober. And since then, I've tried to cultivate that. And then when I had kids, I thought, gosh, this thing keeps getting better. This world keeps giving back to those that want to help it. So,
and you know, you have a lot of love out there. There's a lot of people that you've helped begin this journey by sharing your story. You know, and you and I have gone into some houses and pulled people out from the fire together, and there's just nothing better, you know. And ultimately we want people to have what we have.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what this is all about, is just finding a way to live and be happy and productive and enjoy your life, because there's so many blessings out there, but it takes time. You know, somebody early in recovery, what would you tell them right now?
Don't make any decisions.
Yeah.
Do not make any decisions on your own. Talk to somebody who's been there and that you admire, that you know has been there and that it lives a quality life today, and do everything they ask.
Yeah.
To a T. Be obedient, be compliant, be willing. And then I would also recommend that they pray. Yeah. Pray to anything, any place, something. And that to me is the biggest. I tell all my sponsees and everyone that's like, what do I do? Don't make any decisions and ask somebody else for help. Follow instructions. One
thing you have to change is everything.
That's it.
Right? I mean, it's a big deal. So, well, I love you to death, and I appreciate you taking the time to be on here today and sharing some of your story. You know, and I believe our goal is just to reach one person. That's the ultimate goal. So thank you to my brother from another, Jordan Lee. And thank you to Maple Mountain Recovery for sponsoring us, and also Living Recovery Interventions. And have a great day.